This business is very strange. You can't predict anything. The only thing that's predictable is it's unpredictable. We grew up in the 70s. As teenagers, it was a fantastic time. It seemed like every week there was the Rolling Stones, The Who, Led Zeppelin, all making fantastic albums, one after the other, Pink Floyd. I think probably it was the great era of British rock and roll. Our primary influences were unavoidably the Beatles. If you lived in England at that time, 60s and 70s, it was like almost like breathing.
When I first started buying records, I bought David Bowie albums, and I was completely obsessed by David Bowie and his songwriting and the fact that he could sing in so many different ways. It was only really when I heard Paul Rodgers sing that he, to me, sounded like somebody who was emoting what he was singing. It's like he felt that. And then later on, I heard Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder, and that literally changed my life, because at that point I thought somewhere between what Paul Rodgers does and Stevie Wonder, there I have it. That's all I need from music. And the music that I love the most is music that makes me feel emotional, whether it's good or bad, happy, sad, whatever. It all has to sort of ring true with me on an emotional level.
I always was going to be a musician. It was something I've always been interested in. My brother was a singer in a band. I used to watch him going off to gigs, packing the van and everything, and that was what I was always going to do.
I think I've always wanted to be a musician since a very early age, but I didn't want to put all my eggs into one basket, so I worked for a record company who bought a recording studio, who threw the keys at me and said, "Here's a recording studio, can you go and run it?" I was only 19. I went and ran this recording studio and learned to be engineer and producer at the same time, so I ran the two careers concurrently, which was very handy, as a young band called Thunder phoned me up and said, we're going to record some demos. So I went down to the studio, played a bit of keyboards for them, oversaw this engineer, helped them mix it, and they asked me to join the band. So obviously I refused. They were terrible.
I guess my first love was with bands like Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple, but I was also listening to Motown, I was listening to pop stuff. ABBA I absolutely love, because it was great playing. Yeah, I said it, I don't care. There were great musicians on the ABBA records, really good arrangements, great production. So
It's enough of ABBA.
When we first made records with the band before Thunder, we really learnt an awful lot by doing everything wrong and trying all sorts of things. And because it was the 80s, of course, technology was just coming into its own, and we tried everything. When we began with Thunder, we had a very, very clear idea of what we were doing, probably for the first time. And then their accountant introduced us to Andy Taylor. He made the Power Station album, which we all love. Interesting mixture of sort of soul and rock.
Sock, really?
Yeah. Playing live's fantastic because it's a visceral, actual, real-time experience, whereas recording isn't. You make a record, people don't hear it for 6 months, and there's always that kind of nagging doubt: are they going to like this? Are they going to like this? And when they do like it, hopefully, then it's a payoff.
I think you can emulate a live performance in the studio to a certain extent. A lot of it will be about the conditions you create. I found very early on in my career as an engineer that the most important thing was not the operating of a desk or the placing of the microphone. It was the setting of the ambience in the studio. So if the musicians were happy, that's where a great recording starts.
Something that's gone really well in the studio, it doesn't always translate into a live situation. It's really interesting because some of the songs that we've recorded over the years, they've been really, really brilliant recordings, and you'd love listening to it afterwards. And when you go to play it live, for some reason it just doesn't work. The audience don't quite get it, we don't quite get it, and it's odd. But you never know when that's going to happen. I think that's one of the more interesting things about making records and releasing records and then playing them live, because you never really quite know how it's going to work out.
The ability to be able to really smack people in the face with the loud bits and quiet bits, shut the audience up, that's where to gain the complete attention of the audience is what you're trying to do. And there's little tricks that you can do to make that happen.
We were lucky enough to see the transition from the analogue world into the digital world, and I think we took many lessons from the analogue world where you were limited by things like a tape budget, so you only had a limited amount of time or money to spend on what you actually record. So what you kept was very important,
you had to be good at what you did. You had to be good at your craft because you had a limited amount of time in which to record. You had to get it right because drop-ins were a lot more difficult. You could only record over a tape a certain amount of times. So you actually had to be quite good at what you do. Nowadays it's a lot more lenient. You can make a lot more mistakes. It can be fixed up much easier.
And he takes full advantage of that every time we're in the studio, don't you?
Absolutely.
Push comes to shove, I'd rather be on stage. It's a fantastic place. You've got an audience baying. You've got the excitement, the adrenaline, and anything goes. And I like that. I like the danger of being on the stage and playing live. I think it's really exciting. There ain't another drug on the planet like it. And that's why the Stones are still playing.
Thank you very much.